Well, my name's Kate, and I'm from Canada. Thank you. But for 13 years, I used to live in Sheffield. Thank you. And that's generally the first question that people ask me is, how did a nice Canadian girl end up in Sheffield? Well, I can only say, never marry a Yorkshireman. They don't move. And I married a Yorkshireman who had a council house. He wasn't going anywhere. And that's the way I like to start, with a bit of laughter and a bit of levity, because what I'm here to speak to you about today is a very simple premise. And you can truncate it into one of those little fridge magnet sayings. And my message is quite simply this: people who have fun get more done. And that's it. Yes, I love it. A few heads nod, a few of you look quizzical. What could this possibly be? There's no hidden agenda. Quite simply, people who have fun get more done. And so what I'd like to do is I would like to practice what I preach, is I would like to start again, because I started and the light was in your eyes and we had to mess with that and whatnot. What I'd like to do is I'd like to start again with a bit more fun. So this time I will make an entrance. I will come from behind the flip chart. And when I come out here this time and I say, my name's Kate, if you could please, if you could clap, if you could cheer, if you can do those obnoxious whistles, don't. We'll draw the line there. And then after you've clapped, after you've cheered, what I want that man. Yes, you in the mauve sweater. Yes, you who's just looked down and gone, oh shit. If you will, after they've clapped, after they've cheered, if you could leap to your feet, make it look completely and totally spontaneous, and then what I want you to do is I want you to look at me, I want you to point, and in a big loud voice so that everyone can hear, I want you to shout out, God, that girl is sexy. Now wait a minute. I look around the room and most of you find that fun and enjoyable, as I do. But there will be a few of you in this room who are thinking, we can't have that. We can't have men jumping up and sexually objectifying women. Well, I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, if I was 22 years old, slim-hipped and blonde, which is my definition of bitch, I would probably agree, but the fact of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen, I'm 53 years old, I weigh 14 stone, I have given birth 3 times, I am a real woman, my thighs touch. From the knee up. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I tell you, at this point in my life, I welcome sexual objectification. What's your name, darling?
Paul.
Paul, pleased to meet you. So if I make my entrance, you guys go wild, go crazy. We've been sat quite a bit this morning. This is the time to get some energy flowing through the room. And then, Paul, if you could leap from your feet, point at me and shout out, God, that girl is sexy. Paul is gonna make my day. Yes. Excellent. Excellent. It's all right. I picked him. All right. So I'm going off now. This is all the thing. Because you know what? Part of what I do is I do about the idea of enjoying whatever you do. And that enjoying and happiness is a choice. Yeah? And you have to work at it. So this is my way of, as soon as I come up here, I start my work. And so I would like to enjoy it. So this is my entrance, you know, is I like to do that. So I'll just go off stage now behind the flip chart. Yes, here I am. We're all pretending I'm going to make my entrance. All right, get ready to go crazy. My name's Kate!
God, that girl is sexy.
And this, ladies and gentlemen, goes to prove once and for all men are trainable. Excellent. And so now I've started my day's work, and I'm here, as I say, with the very simple message that people who have fun get more done, which can be quite a challenge sometimes, you know, because you can be brought down with negativity and you can be brought down with difficulties and whatnot. But what I'm going to share with you this morning, ladies and gentlemen, yes, and I've been doing this work for almost 30 years, yes, I am going to share with you what I believe is one of the most cutting edge, brilliant ideas of how to bring more joy, more happiness, more laughter into our everyday lives. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to share with you this cutting edge idea. But if I'm going to do that, I need to convince you. I need to convince you that this is a good idea. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to convince you. Oh, yes, I am. Because I have the holier than holy, the greater than great, the bigger than big, the better than better. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I have evidence-based research. It's such common sense that if you enjoy yourself, you're going to do a better job at it. You're going to have more fun. You're going to enjoy your life. But for some reason, we do seem to need to be convinced. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to use the flip chart here because I'm a low maintenance kind of girl. Hopefully you can see it, but if you can't, trust me, I will verbalize exactly what I'm putting on it. Now, this seems to need to go against there. There we go. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, every fact, every figure to convince you of my cutting edge idea. Are you ready? The first fact figure here is 8. Look at that. This should be followed by a heartfelt ooh. Excellent. Yes. Now check this one out. 2.2. That one's got a decimal. Brilliant. 486, that's 3 digits, and here's one that will really pique your curiosity. 3 equals 10. When does 3 equal 10? Well, I needn't ask you, you're blonde. I've picked on a man, I've got to pick on a woman, you know, and whatnot. And it is a wonderful thing. 8, ladies and gentlemen, I will now make sense of this. 8 refers to years. And this is the evidence-based research from the scientific and medical world. And what the scientific and medical world have done... Oh, did you want to take a shot? Is that for personal use, Clive? I thought it might be. I thought it might be, yes. All right. 8 refers to years. And as I say, what the scientific and medical world have done is they have looked at the physical activity which we call laughter. Rather than try and do something so subjective of what we find funny, we're just simply looking at the physical activity of laughter because that can be quantified, yeah? And they have now found that there are so many health-giving benefits of the physical activity of laughter that they have put it into a little fact. And here it is, ladies and gentlemen. The fact is this. If you laugh every day, you will live 8 years longer. Oh, I like that. I like that. Who started? Did you start that? Woo! You need to get out more, darling. Yes, yes. But basically, what they're talking about is the health-giving benefits. And I'm going to take a minute. I'm going to take a minute and I'm going to go through the health-giving benefits of the physical activity of laughter. We're going to do it with BENEFITS. Very simple way of doing this. Blood pressure is the first thing. Very measurable. When you laugh, your blood pressure goes down. And that's good. I mean, they call raised blood pressure the silent killer, yeah? Blood pressure goes down. When we laugh, we release, E is for endorphins. And my goodness, you guys will have heard of these. The body's feel-good chemicals, anti-inflammatories, natural painkillers, muscle relaxants. They're amazing, positive, good chemicals that are in our body. And when we laugh, we release natural endorphins. Now, we release natural endorphins when we have physical activity. We release natural endorphins when we have sexual encounters. And we release natural endorphins when we eat chocolate. I'm And I love that because sexual encounters never gets a rise out of anybody but chocolate! Proving once again that men may be driven by testosterone, but women are driven by Toblerone. Yes. But, and this is very measurable, natural endorphins, these wonderful positive chemicals, are released in the greatest concentration when we laugh. Brilliant. The N is for neutralize cortisol. Now, not only are these endorphins important because they make us feel good, but they also neutralize cortisol. And what, you may ask, is cortisol? Cortisol is stress-related adrenaline. Yeah, stress-related adrenaline. And here I am, I'm talking about stress, yes? And I can tell you the latest thinking in the field of stress management. Yes, I can. The latest thinking in the field of stress management is this. There is good stress, and there is bad stress. And I don't know about you, but when I start reading stuff like that, I cannot help but think, what on earth is good stress? Well, stress, at its root, is fight or flight. Fight or flight, yes, is a stress, is we need stress. If a tiger walks into this room. Yes? But there is such a thing as good stress. Of course there is. It would be good stress that would get your foot to the brake fast enough if the car in front of you has stopped quickly. It will save your life. But what is not good stress is if that cortisol, which has been released in saving your life, is allowed to course through your body. If that cortisol is not neutralized by the presence of natural endorphins, yes? If we don't have enough natural endorphins, if we're running on stress, because that will cause, the cortisol will cause your upper arm muscle to contract, your elbow to rotate, your index finger to extend, your forearm to press down your electric window button, and then these two fingers to rise. This is not good stress, even though it might feel good. And I think part of the reason that it feels good is because it's anonymous, yeah? I know there'll be some of you in this room going, nobody knows I work in the NHS. I don't know. But here is the formula. We release natural endorphins in the greatest concentration when we laugh, and they are important because they neutralize cortisol. The second E in the health-giving benefits of laughter is that we exercise more. Research tells us that people who are happy will exercise more, and people who exercise more will be happier. And we all know how good exercise is for us. I read it in a magazine. The F is for fertility. I told you this would make you more productive. Oh, that's a groaner. That's a groaner. But did you know, and this blows my mind, did you know that when a woman gets stressed out, a stressed out woman is less likely to ovulate? I find that incredibly powerful, that stress, the lack of having joy and fun, stress affects our being so profoundly that it takes away our ability to procreate. A stressed out woman is less likely to ovulate. I find that incredibly powerful. I also find it a bit disappointing because for 12 years I took the pill and all I needed was shoulder pads and a briefcase. But you know, it's absolutely true. And male fertility is affected by how much fun and joy and relaxation, how much non-stress men are having. Because when men get stressed, sperm count goes down, sperm motility goes down. That's not all that goes down. I'll leave that one with you. The I is for immunity. And again, this is very measurable. When we laugh, our immune system is strengthened because immunoglobulins get kicked out into the body and they act as a barrier to viral and bacterial illness. The T is for treatment time. And again, all sorts of research tells us that people who are happy heal more quickly. People who have a life to which they would like to return will heal more quickly. To me, this is the definition of health. You're less likely to get ill and you're more likely to get well. And the S, so important, already mentioned today, the S is for sleep. People who have laughter prior to sleep will have better sleep. They have, again measurable, more beta waves, which means that if you've had laughter prior to sleep, you wake up rejuvenated, regenerated, ready to take on the world. And people who have stress prior to sleep, well, they wake up tired. Yeah? And these are, very quickly, very, very quickly, the health-giving benefits of the physical activity of laughter. And I haven't quite figured out where in my little mnemonic I can put the fact they've also discovered that people who laugh a lot digest their food more efficiently and effectively. People who laugh a lot digest and process glucose more efficiently and effectively. People who laugh are less likely to get type 2 diabetes, which I think is just brilliant. Because now, when I go to the ice cream parlor, I say, I'll have 1 scoop. No, just a moment. Make it 2. So you have to figure how this stuff impacts on you personally, you know, that it's not just facts and figures and all, but how does this impact on me personally? Yes, I'm less likely to develop type 2 diabetes, which is brilliant. Lifestyle illnesses, you know, with the more we laugh, the more we will be healthy. Now, what are these guys talking about? Laugh every day. Well, we've all laughed several times in the last few minutes. The optimum health-giving benefit of laughter is 20 minutes a day. The average adult laughs for about 6 minutes a day. So it doesn't take a math major to figure out that if we want all the health-giving benefits of laughing, we need to make up 14 minutes. And I write it really small because that's the big point. My cutting-edge idea is going to show you how to make up those 14 minutes so that you will find more things fun, more things funny. Happiness is a choice, yeah? 2.2 refers to million American dollars. 2.2 million American dollars was spent studying this stuff. Humor and healing, humor in the workplace and productivity, yeah? 2.2 million American dollars. And the concluding paragraph said, if you laugh, you'll have more fun. If you laugh, you'll have more fun. I could have told you that for a $5. If you laugh, you'll have more fun. That is so profound. Because what you may not have realized, for those of us who actually take a half an hour out of a day in our lives to think about this stuff, which is what I'm asking you to do, right, is most of us think if you have fun, you will laugh more. And they have very significantly flipped it on its head. The research is telling us the more you laugh, the more things you find fun. The more you laugh, the more things you find funny. If you laugh, you'll have more fun. Genius! Laughter is the key. Yes, 486 pounds sterling per annum per employee is the latest statistic from the CBI, stress-related absenteeism. Stress is now the #1 reason why people have time off work. It's past the common cold and backache, yeah? It's pandemic. You know the statistics. They're outrageous how many people are unwell, yeah? And this is just days off. This doesn't talk about all the inefficiencies and ineffectiveness that happens, because when we get stressed, everyday tasks become difficult. Everyday tasks, something like you input into your computer, something most of us will do at some point or another, not all of us, but some of us, and those of you who have, it's an everyday task to input into your computer. You press enter. Nothing happens. Well, the first time you're okay, aren't you? You figure it's just a glitch, I'll do it again. So you input the same data into the computer, press enter. And for a second time, nothing happens. And then it starts. the release of cortisol, which causes your tummy to tighten, your throat to constrict, your mouth to go dry, and all intelligent thought to go right out the window. Because what you do now is you will input into what is obviously a broken computer program for a third time. And this time you will do it a little more slowly, as if that would make a difference. And when you get to that enter button, you hit it a little harder. And when nothing happens for a third time, you begin to hit that button repeatedly, harder and harder and faster and faster. And if you work in an open plan office, well, inefficiency will spread because everybody's doing the meerkat. What's going on over there? But you don't see that. No, because when we become stressed out, we lose the big picture. Everything becomes microscopic, and there you are, harder and harder and faster and faster and faster and faster and harder until the whole world becomes about that fucking button. Was that you? Oh my gosh! Yes, yes. I do seek your forgiveness. I do seek your forgiveness for using bad language, but part of how I know it's more is because of, yes, ladies and gentlemen, evidence-based research. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, evidence-based research tells us that, check this one out, I love this fact. 42% of people who work with computers will once a week engage in desk rage. Isn't that brilliant? Desk rage. But this figure here is days off. It is pandemic, yeah? Now, I know I've got your curiosity. When does 3 equal 10? Well, 3 equals 10 when we are talking minutes. 3 minutes equals 10 minutes. When does 3 minutes equal 10 minutes? When we are talking caloric burning. 3 minutes of laughing, which uses each and every intercostal muscle. The cardiovascular system gets a workout. Your body is oxygenated from head to toe. They call laughing internal jogging. 3 minutes of laughing burns as many calories as 10 minutes of high-intensity aerobics. You can laugh yourself slim! I used to be 24 stone. It's a miracle. It's a miracle. Now, I don't know about you, but I like to do my facts and figures because the idea that I'm going to show you is fairly cutting edge. It's way out there, right? So I need your brains to be engaged. Now, hopefully, you'll have, one of these will get you that you're interested in the health-giving benefits. Maybe, big studies prove this to be true. Maybe you want to improve the bottom line, or maybe like me, you just want to improve your bottom. But hopefully one of my facts and figures, because I'm going to now share with you the cutting edge idea. This idea, which I love and adore and have done for many years, it's called laughter without reason. And I love this moment in my presentation. See, they start to leave. I knew it was too cutting edge, yes? But really, I love this point in my presentation because I introduce the idea of laughter without reason, and the intelligent in the group start to titter. The intelligent in the group start to exchange glances because the intelligent in the group are thinking, if I laugh without reason, they'll lock me up. Which is actually a fairly well-founded fear, bizarre behavior, whatnot, and that. And is a very good point in my presentation for me to do a little sidebar and explain to you how I got involved in this work. Quite simply, I don't have an MBA, I don't have a master's in science, I've never run a big company turned consultant. No. I got involved in this work quite simply because at the ripe old age of 23, they locked me up. I personally have a very extensive history of mental illness. I've been doing this work for years and years, and every time I say that, I have a history of mental illness, it just makes me want to laugh, you know. It just makes me want to laugh. Many things make me want to laugh, but it's good. So I want to tell you a little bit of my story, the beginning of my journey, yeah. And I've been on the mental health journey for 30 years. I've been a user. 30 years in June, actually. I have it marked off. But quite simply, in my childhood, I was the girl most likely to succeed, yeah. I was third in Canada in the junior math contest. I skipped 3 grades, yeah. I had an 88% average when I went to university. I was a whiz kid, yeah. But I wanted to go into theatre. I wanted to go into theatre. I wanted to make the world a better place with my art. And so I auditioned at the best acting school in Canada. They auditioned 2,000 people and take 16. And I got in. Exactly. Ooh. Yeah. Oh, I love you. I love you. I love you. Yes, but I did, and I was so excited. I was going to make it. I was going to make it, yeah? But actually, what happened was for 3 years, I did what I call emotional gymnastics, yeah? They cry, you weep, you laugh, you play, you all sorts of stuff. And after 3 years, I got out. And I went round and I did my auditions, and I got greeted with, "Thank you very much, Kate. Don't call us, we'll call you. Thank you very much, Kate. We're casting later. Thank you very much, Kate. Yes, that is the door." I couldn't find a job to save my life. And for the first time in my life, my self-esteem went down. My self-confidence, my self-belief. I had never hit a brick wall before. And so I had very little coping mechanisms, yeah? So as soon as I hit this difficulty in my life, I completely fell apart, yeah? And then I got a phone call, yay, from the University of British Columbia. And they asked me if I would like to come and teach first-year acting. I had never done a professional day's acting work in my life, but here I was being offered the opportunity to teach at the university level. And I did what people who are very often stressed out, who are very often low self-esteem, low self-belief, I did what I call external bravado. No, I'm okay, that's a brilliant idea. Teach, of course I can do that. Yes, pick me, I'll do it. Yes, absolutely. No problem at all. I'll be there Monday at 9 o'clock. External bravado. Internal falling apart. Yeah? And I don't know about you, but in my experience, I've seen many people who are on the edge, so to speak, and it's like a bright light just before it burns out. External bravado. I'm okay, I'm fine. And this is why, you know, so often a breakdown comes as a surprise. And that's what happened to me. And after a few months of teaching, the stress became so great that I began to get unwell. But I didn't see it. I didn't perceive it at all. I had what, you know, we probably would call insight, very little insight. I started sleeping 18 hours a day. I started making long-distance phone calls in the middle of the night. And you know, when you get a bit stressed out, you think, I'll just straighten my desk, I'll clean out my handbag. Well, I started rearranging furniture in other people's houses. People were getting concerned about me, but I didn't see it. And that's really part of this story is every time I've gotten ill, which I've gotten ill several times, you know, but this first time in particular, I didn't see it coming at all, yeah? So anyhow, they didn't renew my contract at the university. That's okay, no problem, that's all right. I'm not meant to be a teacher anyhow. I'm meant to be an actress. This is a great opportunity, fantastic, external bravado, internal falling apart. And so I decided it was time to go home. I was in Vancouver, and I'm from Toronto, 3,000 miles across the Rocky Mountains. I decided it was time to go home. Now, I come from a dysfunctional family. Only me then, eh? But I went home, and as soon as I got home, my family gathered. My mum, my dad, my sister, my 2 brothers, they gathered. Why? Because they knew something was wrong with me. How? because I had gone out into my mother's back garden sunbathing, completely naked with garlic bulbs taped to my breasts. But it made perfect sense to me. I had a very bad chest cold. I knew that garlic was good for a cold, so why not tape it on your tits, go outside and bake? Well, the neighbor didn't see it that way. The neighbor looked over the fence, and he'd never met me before, and he sees me splayed. I was on the picnic table, and the neighbor phoned the police. So the police come knocking on my mother's door, and my mother phoned my father, which in my family is epic. And so they gathered, my mum, my dad, my sister, my two brothers. Now my sister gave me this muumuu caftan nightgown thing, you know, to cover me up. And they sent me upstairs. And as I was going upstairs, I turned back and I saw my family, my mum, my dad, my sister, my two brothers. And I couldn't help but think, I have been home only 3 days, and already my dysfunctional family is reunited. Will my personal power never cease? So as you can gather, I was becoming delusional. But I didn't see it. I didn't see it at all. This just made perfect sense to me. Of course, my family gathers. I'm home. Yes? But I was becoming delusional. And as I lay upstairs in my sister's guest bedroom, yeah, my mom and sister shared a house, right? So they were guest bedroom. And I lay up there. I fell into a very common delusion, which is the religious one. And I became absolutely convinced that I was the second coming of Christ. Now, it is a very common delusion, but I was right. Well, I had the evidence-based research, didn't I? Of course the second coming would be a woman. Of course the second coming would come from Canada, the biggest peace-loving country in the world. And of course the second coming would come from the arts. This was the days of Bob Geldof and Live Aid and Farm Aid and Band Aid, and Ronald Reagan, who used to be an actor, was now President of the United States of America. And as I came walking down the stairs back into the living room wearing this muumuu caftan nightgown thing, all I could think was, excellent costuming. And I came down into the kitchen, into the living room, I mean, and there's my family, and they're huddled. And what they're all doing is they're all going, she's not coming to my house. I haven't got room for her. She's not coming to my house. And I went up to this gathered group and I said to my sister, Sharon, because that's her name. Sharon, touch the robe. And you know when you've had a meeting and there's been enough discussion, there's been enough chat, there's been enough talk, it's now time for action. Well, that was the moment for my family. And so the men, my father and two brothers, leapt to their feet. They formed a convoy of 3 cars. They put me in the back seat of the back car. Well, I'm back there thinking, motorcade. Everything was making perfect sense. Everything was feeding whatever was going on with me. And my father and 2 brothers, they drove in 3 separate cars and they took me to hospital. Big decision. And when we got to hospital, they decided that we would go in through the emergency, is how they would get me admitted, because that was their goal, to get me admitted, yeah? And we went in there, in through the emergency, and the admitting nurse took one good look at me, got out a chart and wrote down mental anxiety, which put me to the back of the queue. Because people who are physically hurt will get treated first. Oh, little message there. People who are physically hurt will get treated first, you know. So I was at the back of the queue. Well, let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, the back of the queue is not a very good place to put someone who thinks they're the second coming of Christ. Not an ER, because ladies and gentlemen, I went around healing people. Completely invading their space. Don't worry, you will get better. Don't worry, it will heal. Don't worry, it will grow back. Completely and totally invading people's space, disruptive, misbehaved. The great phrase that I came to know later in time was inappropriate behavior, yeah? So anyhow, these two nurses came out and they said, could you come with us, please? And I thought, excellent. Finally, we are getting some attention. I'm a professionally trained actress, professionally trained in how to get attention, and I was being ignored. But finally, we got some attention. And what they did was these two nurses put me into a little anteroom. And one of my brothers was with me, you know. I thought it was great that one of my brothers or my dad was with me all the time, but the truth was they were doing turns of guard duty. And so they put me in this little room. Well, now I'm pent up. This little room about 3 feet by 4 feet, nothing in there but a gurney, and on that was this white sheet, yeah, and I'm pent up. And I realized retrospectively, I didn't realize it at the time, but I realized retrospectively, I was by now completely and totally psychotic. Anyone here ever been psychotic? Excellent, excellent. Well, I'll tell you what it was like for me. For me, psychosis was the clearest, cleanest state of mind I've ever been in. Everything made absolute, complete sense. And I came up with a plan of how we were going to get attention, how we were going to get me admitted. That was the goal. I came up with a plan, and I was absolutely convinced this plan would work. I was absolutely convinced I knew what I was doing. I was absolutely convinced that I was right. Anyone here ever thought they were right? You may have been psychotic at the time. It's a thin line between madness and genius, yeah? But this was my plan. I said to my brother, Jim, because that's his name, Jim, why don't you go and get us a cup of coffee? And I'll get us some attention. So I stripped off all of my clothes until I was completely naked. Use your imaginations. Then I wrapped myself in this white sheet that was on the gurney, right? So now, barefoot and naked, wearing nothing but a sheet. Again, I'm thinking, excellent costuming. I set out to get attention, and I stepped out into the hall. And my poor brother Jim was coming back with coffee going, Kate, Kate, don't worry, Jim, I'll handle this. And don't ask me why, but when you become psychotic, your accent becomes very British. It was like Dame Judi Dench just channeled right through me. And so I waltzed over to this fellow and I tapped him on the shoulder, holding on to my toga, barefoot and naked, wearing nothing but a sheet. And I said, excuse me, but pray tell, are you a doctor? And this poor fellow turned around and said, no. I'm only a porter. And God, I hate working nights. Well then, direct me to a doctor, which he did, and I waltzed over here, tapped this guy on the shoulder, barefoot and naked, wearing nothing but a sheet. Excuse me, but pray tell, are you a doctor? Yes. Well then, examine me! I got attention. And what I realized retrospectively is you must always be very specific on the kind of attention you are seeking, because you might just get some. And what I got was the same two nurses who'd brought me into this ante-room, right? They grabbed a mother of a syringe. It was filled with haloperidol. Antipsychotic neuroleptic, works rather like a chemical lobotomy, cuts off impulses to and from the brain, straight into my left buttock. And as I was going, the doctor picked up my chart, which, as you recall, said mental anxiety, and wrote down psychotic schizophrenic, which is a huge diagnosis to have the second line, fourth word of your chart. So the way I like to tell the story is that with a flash of my tits and a flash of his pen, I went from being a neurotic actress to being a psychotic schizophrenic. And I still didn't get it. I still did not get it. They took me to the ward, and the sign said mental health services. And all I could think was, oh, there must be a shortage of beds for actresses with chest colds. And I've got to tell you this bit of the story. I saved this bit of the story. I love this bit of the story for people who know what I'm talking about. And I know you do, because we're all involved in it. Is quite simply, they put me in this little anteroom, bedroom now, right? And in came this woman who said she was my prime nurse. And she said, I just have to ask you a few questions, you know, before we can finalize the admission, right? So she asked me a few questions, my name, my date of birth, my address, and that really confused me because I didn't know whether my address was Vancouver or my address was my mother's house or what so I was very confused. And then she asked the strangest question ever. She said, Kate, yes, do you hear voices? I'm thinking to myself, I heard that. And so completely without realizing it, I didn't want her to think that there was anything wrong with my hearing. You know, I said to the question, do you hear voices? In a big loud voice I responded, yes. And little did I know was that I had just ticked the box of a major symptom of schizophrenia. So I had the diagnosis of schizophrenia for quite a long time. Then when I didn't respond appropriately to the drugs, they changed my diagnosis. Yes, great way to do medicine. We'll try this. If it doesn't work, it must be something else. So I became manic depressive, and they put me on lithium, which isn't a drug, it's more of a salt. And then they changed their own disease, and I became bipolar disorder. My final diagnosis, yes, in the 18 months that I was in hospital, my final diagnosis was personality disorder, which I do believe is my psychiatrist's way of saying, I don't know what the fuck's wrong with her. But I spent a year and a half in hospital that first time. Yeah, I've got my hospital admissions down to about 5 days now. And I'm diagnosed now as being bipolar disorder, and I agree with that. I think that it's absolutely right. And I'm on medication. You know, I've got no problems with that at all. I believe I need it. I believe it helps me. And so it does. Yeah. But just let me tell you very briefly how I got out of hospital. Is they did something to me that they never did to anybody else the 18 months I was in hospital. It's called spread eagling. And they put leather shackles around my wrists and half-inch thick chains, and leather shackles around my ankles and half-inch thick chains, and then spread eagle, thus the name, sides of the bed were up. They chained me to the bed. And they left me like that for 5.5 days, allowed up only to void. And when I got out of that, having had inappropriate behavior, I came to the conclusion that appropriate behavior was for me to be quiet and still and controlled, which after 5.5 days I was. I went to the head nurse, a gentleman with whom I had an excellent rapport, right? And I said to him, what was that all about? He said, Kate, it was part of your treatment. I said, treatment? Treatment for what? He said, well, you have to realize you were out of control, you were psychotic. I said, you know what? That's a term you guys use all the time, and I'm not even sure I know what it means. What do you mean, psychotic? And he paused, and he looked at me, and he saw it, and he said, you were out of touch with reality. And that was it. That was my boing moment. That was my epiphany, my paradigm shift. As soon as he said you were out of touch with reality, I immediately thought, whose reality? And that was the moment when I started to become well, when I realized that I was the one who was going to get me well. This looking to the medical model for help and whatnot wasn't the answer that I needed, yeah? Whose reality? I had never for a moment been out of touch with my reality, yeah? And so I said to him, I want to discharge myself. He said, you what? I said, I want to discharge myself. He said, oh, you can't. You've been very ill lately. I said, no. I recognize the medical model is not for me. I want to discharge myself. I made him call in the duty doctor. The duty doctor came in and talked to me, examined me and whatnot. And he said, Kate, if you want to discharge yourself, you're going to have to go what's called against medical advice. I said, oh yeah? What does that mean? He said, if you go AMA and sign yourself out of hospital, you'll have a very difficult time getting back in. I said, get me a pen. And I signed myself out of hospital. And you know what? I could make that sound so courageous, so life-affirming, so inspirational, but in so many ways, that was actually a decision that was quite stupid, because I was institutionalized. I'd been in hospital for 18 months. I was used to 3 hots and a cot. And so when I went home to my mother and sisters, at first I couldn't function at all. But my mother and sister did the most wonderful thing, and I talked about it when we were on the table there a little bit. They gave me time. They gave me time. They were, to use something from that time to change thing, they were patient. And they just said to me, take as long as you need. And my brilliant mother said, but, yes, mother, if you choose to suicide, don't do it in my house. So I had my boundaries. I had time, and I had my boundaries. And baby step by baby step, I started to get better. And I wish it were as simple as that. I wish it were as simple as that. But I remember the victory of the first time I took the dog for a walk. Yeah? I had to relearn how to read. I had to relearn how to drive a car. I don't drive now because it freaks me out. Yeah, but I did at the time and whatnot. And baby step by baby step, I started to get better. And what I did in part was I looked at, when did I start to get ill? When did I start to get ill? What changed? And what I realized was that I had begun to get ill when I started to take the world too seriously. When if I didn't get that job, thank you very much, Kate, it was the end of the world. I was the type of person, when I began to get ill, that if I found myself in that traffic jam, I would think, all these cars are here just to mess up my day. And what I had to do was I had to teach myself that instead of honking on the horn to try and get the traffic to move, I had to think instead, hey, I've been wanting 10 minutes to myself. This is it. Yeah, I'm going to listen to Radio 4. 2. And baby step by baby step, I put myself back together. And what I completely and totally believe is that you may not be able to control the traffic, but what you have complete and total control over is how you choose to respond to it. Yeah? How you choose to respond to it. That really is, to me, the power that each and every one of us has. So when I introduced the idea of laughter without cause, if you were one of the people who immediately thought, oh dear, they'll lock me up, I'm here to tell you, it's really not that bad. Having a nervous breakdown turned out to be the best career move I ever made, because I have had the privilege, ladies and gentlemen, of speaking in 29 countries, and I can tell you, I am laughing all the way to the bank. Oh yes, oh yes, absolutely. And I have to tell you a little anecdote. I do a lot of work in corporate situations, yeah, big companies and whatnot. And one of my biggest clients is HSBC. You'll have heard of them, second largest financial institution on the planet, yes? Well, I do for them, catch this, senior global leadership training. Okay? Yeah, that is a woo. That is a woo. I can hardly believe it. I just think I cannot believe this, right? Anyhow, I did a session. It's a few time ago now. But this fellow came up to me afterwards. Gray hair, gray suit, gray eyes, looked like a banker, yeah? And he says to me, what a wonderful session, Kate. I said, thank you very much. He said, no, I've never thought of fun as a benchmark of success. How much we enjoy our jobs as a benchmark of success. I said, oh, that's great. Well, thank you very much. And he says, no, no, no. And Kate, I want you to know, if you hadn't have told us, I'd have never known you were mentally ill. So I just looked at him and I said, and I want you to know, if you hadn't have opened your mouth, I'd have never known you were a twat. embarrassing thing to say. You couldn't possibly lead a session and be mentally ill. You couldn't possibly have a nice suit jacket and be mentally ill. You could, I mean, the poor fellow doesn't realize the statistics of 1 in 4. I mean, everybody in this room knows that statistic. 1 in 4 adults during their adult life will need some sort of intervention from mental health care. And what? 1 in 4. It's a lottery. 1, 2, 3.
Don't you dare.
I know. I was putting the spotlight on you earlier. Yes, absolutely. But you know, all right, so it only takes a few minutes that I want to show you this idea of laughter without reason. And you can practice it on your own with a friend, show it to them, whatnot. It's such a simple idea. What I've done is I have anatomically broken down the physical process of laughter into a little exercise that we can practice. I call it Humour aerobics. I know. Just for me. So if we're going to do this, let's do it with E for enthusiasm. Could you raise your right hands? And repeat after me. I. State your name. I know everybody in the room's going, state your name. Do solemnly swear. To practice my humour aerobics. For 5 minutes every day for 1 week. Just because Kate said so. And the revolution begins here. Yes, the revolution. Yes, but just because Kate said so has nothing to do with ego. It has to do with, you know what, sometimes you have to try things on, and after you do it, the behavior, then you realize, you know, how good it can be for you. Because this will, for some of you, be right out of your comfort zone, recreating the act of laughter, because some of you are miserable bastards. Yeah. All right, let us start at the beginning. I'll do it first, and then we can all do it together. And if we all do it, nobody feels foolish, right? So it's really quite simple. The beginning of the process that we call laughter, which I call humour aerobics, right, begins at the beginning, what I like to call neutral or blank. So eyes forward, watch me, I'll show you what it looks like. 1, 2, 3, blank. I can hold this for hours on end. And if we all go blank, there will be some of you in the room who recognize that blank is how you spend much of your day. All right, so all together now, let's go blank. 1, 2, 3, blank. Excellent. And those of you who are laughing, that's the point. Beautiful, beautiful. Yes? All right. As we begin the process of laughter, the first muscles to engage, check this out. The zygomatic major muscle contracts up into the zygomatic arch. Ooh. Also known as the mouth and cheeks. So eyes forward, watch this. I'll show you what this looks like. It looks like this. Blank, mouth. Don't let it go into your eyes yet. As soon as it starts to go into your eyes, it starts to become sincere. This is the insincere smile. This one you'll be able to use. You'll be able to go back to work, and you'll be able to say to one of your colleagues, I think you're doing a wonderful job. And only we know. Only we. But you know what happens is when you contract the zygomaticus major muscle up into the zygomatic arch, the body releases natural endorphins. It's like a reflex type thing. It releases natural endorphins, and they make us feel good. They make us feel better. They're anti-tension. They're natural painkillers, yeah? And so basically, if you put a smile upon your face by choice, before you know it, it will become authentic. Yeah? Nobody goes to the gym and gets on the treadmill and turns to their personal trainer and says, this isn't real running. Well, don't think of it as this isn't real laughing, yeah? Because what we're doing is we simulate laughter to stimulate laughter. We simulate to stimulate. Or for the girls in the crowd, you just fake it till you make it. You liked that one, didn't you? She's very good. She's very good. Right there in my front row with a great smile. Blank mouth. All right, all together, let's try that. Blank mouth. Blank mouth. The next ones are the ones around the eyes, and we don't use these muscles enough. Do you know why? Fear of wrinkles. So great is our fear of wrinkles, we now have Botox. Botox, fantastic treatment where they shoot a poison into the muscles around the eyes so the muscles will die for a short period of time. So if you don't use them, you won't get wrinkles. Fantastic beauty treatment, apparently. But what ends up happening is you go around a bit like, hello. Hello. My name is Cher. If you're wondering why I have not aged in the last 28 years, it's because I'm half dead. We've got to use these muscles, yes? We've got to send the body as many signals as we can that we're laughing. We've got to get over the fear of wrinkles. I personally have freed myself of the fear of wrinkles. I just remind myself that cleavage is one more big wrinkle. Blank mouth, eyes. It looks like this. I'll do it first. Blank mouth, eyes. All right, let's all try that together. Blank mouth, eyes. One more time. Blank mouth, eyes. Excellent. The next one, the forehead goes up. Because if you take a minute and you bring the forehead down, it's dark, dank, depressed. The forehead goes up. So that looks like this. Blank mouth, eyes, forehead. Now I trust that you can all do that, so we'll move on to the last thing that happens in the face. Blank mouth, eyes, forehead, lower lip. That looks like this. It's the lower lip goes down, and part of how you can remember it is that it's not the upper lip goes up, because the upper lip goes up is actually the baring of the teeth. It's a growl. And we've all seen people who smile like that. Friday night at the pub, can I buy you a drink? It's the lower lip goes down, so that looks like this. Blank, mouth, eyes, forehead, lower lip. All right, so let's all try that. Blank mouth, eyes, forehead, lower lip, and then hold that face. Because now is the time to look around and see how your neighbors are doing. All right, all together now. Blank mouth, eyes, forehead, lower lip. Excellent. Excellent.